that the night darkness emanated from it. The rider grasped the mount's reins in one hand, while the other held a lighted jack-o'-lantern above his shoulders that no head rested upon. Ichabod Crane, only hours after first learning the legend of the Headless Horseman, had found the ghostly rider, though it might be more accurately said that the Headless Horseman had found Ichabod Crane more from reflex than by intent. The spare schoolmaster spurred his mount and made a mad dash through the darkness of Sleepy Hollow. Crane could hear the phantom behind him sparking hooves and the swirling hussar's cloak as it tore through the foggy night air. The events of the evening no longer filled the nutmegger's mind. His desperate proposal to the comely heir of the Van Tassel wealth and her quick rejection of said, now only surviving the next few minutes, tasked Ichabod's brain. Ichabod Crane made a mad dash for his very life. The motivations of the mounted Dullahan have been speculated for many years, and it is said the horseman seeks his own head and vengeance upon those who stole it from him. It has also been suggested the horseman hunts down those whose head he hopes to use to replace his own, but we will never know for certain. Ichabod's mount was no racehorse, and soon lost its stride as it galloped away in flight. The black rider of Sleepy Hollow came so close to Ichabod he could have stroked the hell-born equine's smoke-spewing nose. Crane hunkered close to his horse, hoping to escape the black-gloved hands of the looming spectre, when its demonic mount stopped instantly, as if it had struck a glass wall only it could feel. As slow as Ichabod Crane's own horse had become, it moved like quicksilver compared to the now immobile pursuers. Crane heard his own exhausted horse's hooves tramp across the wooden slats of the bridge heading out of Sleepy Hollow's burial grounds, and he remembered the story he had heard only hours before. The Headless Horseman was confined to the consecrated land of Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, and he had now crossed the terminus that contained the dark spirit. Ichabod Crane turned to see the Headless Horseman's health steed rearing on its oversized hind legs, spinning the rider, still holding the jack-o'-lantern in a devilish pirouette. A true dance macabre. The nightmarish beast reared up again, and the headless rider hurled the blazing jack-o'-lantern toward Crane. It crossed the night air between them to impact, as the Continental Army cannonball did, upon the Teutonic Terror's own head, on the cranium of the Connecticut school teacher, with such force as to dismount him from his exhausted nag. The next morning, workers on Van Tassel's farm found Ichabod's still frothy horse nibbling in one of their fields, and a search led only to Crane's large-brimmed Connecticut Yankee hat, nearby a smashed pumpkin on the bridge leading to the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. The old schoolmaster, Ichabod Crane, was never seen again in Tarrytown. Some say Ichabod Crane was the victim to unspeakable evil. Some say the spectre was an elaborate prank played on Crane by Abraham Van Brunt, the very large Brom Bones. Others dare speculate that the Headless Horseman was paying a debt to Katrina Von Tassel's own family, as it was Baltus Von Tassel's own money that paid for the Hessian mercenary's burial on hallowed ground, rather than have it lay in an anonymous mass grave in a potter's field, and that the grateful Eidolon returned from the grave to drive off the duplicitous Ichabod Crane, whose only true desire was the Van Tassel fortune. To this day, none have dared challenge the Ghost Rider's hegemony amongst the Tarrytown tombs to put the question to the Hessian hussar, lest they join Ichabod Crane as victim to the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow. Young Eric was a daredevil and an avid athlete. Eric, the Prince of the Air, born on 24 March 1874 in Budapest, Hungary. Eric had 5 brothers and a sister. Eric's father, Mayor Weiss, was a rabbi who had a short tenure with a congregation in Appleton, Wisconsin, before moving to 79th Street in Manhattan in 1887. And within 3 years, Eric would run away for a year before returning to his family in New York City. But he was no longer the Eric Weiss that they knew. Eric Weiss, during his mysterious time away, had metamorphosized and returned as Harry Houdini, the master of magical mystery and escape artist extraordinaire. Eric Weiss, Harry, to his close friends, had become consumed with the printed biography of John Eugene Robert Houdin, the famed stage magician of the 19th century, who had died 3 years before Houdini was even born. Not at all fluent in the Gallic tongue, Harry added an I to Houdini, creating the new universally recognized appellation Houdini. Harry Houdini performed the typical card tricks and bird acts found in dime museums, where he demonstrated his craft, until he was approached by the showman Martin Beck, who helped make Houdini's artistry of escape a media sensation in America and Europe. Unknown to European audiences, Houdini would gain instant notoriety when he extricated himself from a pair of Scotland Yard's toughest handcuffs in less time than it took the inspector to whom they belonged could walk 3 steps from the lamppost to where he thought he secured the American prestidigitator. Houdini's public escape would herald his arrival, and his fame grew across 2 continents. Houdini would travel across the world before television, performing death-defying feats that thrilled audiences young and old. Handcuffs, manacles, padlocks and chains, straitjackets, mailbags, welded coffins, nothing could contain the master magician, whether bound hanging upside down from a building or submerged under frigid waters. So adept at his craft of illusion, even the renowned author and the creator of the logic-oriented Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle, believed Houdini's feats were supernatural acts and true magic. Unlike the many magical showmen of Houdini's era, the Mage Supreme never claimed his abilities were paranormal, insisting only they were acts of physical prowess and analytic skill. Houdini, entertainer and showman, loathed those who claimed to possess magical powers that they would use to cajole and con grieving families wishing to contact a loved one cut down by the outbreaks of disease and global warfare. Houdini would expose the so-called spiritual mediums, revealing their tricks of the trade to the unsuspecting and naive audiences of the silent film era. Harry Houdini would join the ranks of Hollywood's first cinematic pantheon, appearing in the early 20th century action-packed silent films. Houdini had marketed his self-taught skills with the aplomb of a master showman, climbing from unknown street performer to dime museum exhibit to famous vaudevillian to cinema star to world-class spiritual medium ghostbuster. Harry Houdini had the power to metamorphosize into whatever his audience needed him to be: the actor, the magician, the performer, the truth-seeker, and escape artist. At 52 years of age, Harry Houdini still carried a physique like no other. An avid physical fitness aficionado since his single digits, Harry had an open challenge to anybody who claimed they had a trap he could not escape, and that no man could best the core strength of his abdominal muscles. Boxers, strongmen, police officers, and street toughs were all invited to test Houdini's stomach muscles with their best gut punch. On 21 October, in the year 1926, in his dressing room at the Princess Hotel, where Houdini was to perform his death-defying Chinese waterbox trick, Harry's all-ab challenge was tested by the college student J. Gordon Whitehead. Whether cosmic coincidence or a terrible confluence of events, Harry Houdini, while handcuffed, hobbled and inverted into a steamer trunk-sized glass cabinet filled with water, would suffer a burst appendix, leaving him in life-threatening jeopardy. The beloved conjurer struggled to survive, but on the 31st of October, 1926, Harry Houdini escaped the mortal coil and journeyed to the undiscovered country that awaits us all. A showman to the very end, Harry Houdini would take his final bow on the great stage of life on Halloween, forever associating himself and his magical career with Europa's oldest spiritual celebration. Harry Houdini was buried with his beloved family in Glendale, Queens, on 4 November 1926, with a gathering of 2,000-plus mourners to witness Houdini's final performance on this earth. Houdini's tomb in Queens, New York, is marked by a bust of his likeness, an unusual feature in the typically modest Hebrew cemetery, and by a broken wand, a symbol signifying the end of a great magician's mastery of the mystic arts. Harry Houdini, the king of magic, was survived by his wife Bess, who continued to expose phony spiritualists and psychic mediums for another decade, challenging them to connect with her husband, who promised to convey a pre-planned secret message. as to assure any posing spirits bona fide as that of the hawk-eyed Houdini. But none were ever able to pierce the veil to the great beyond and connect with the daredevil magicians. Bess would join her spouse 20 years after that fateful Halloween in 1926. The Society of Magicians holds a broken wand ceremony at Houdini's grave at the anniversary of his death every year, and he and Bess's special code phrase is still held secret to this very day, in case Harry needs to one day confirm his bona fides to any curious and fortunate mystic. But on this, the 90th anniversary of Harry Houdini's passing, it seems as though only death could provide Houdini a challenge from which he could not escape. So to Harry Houdini and Robert Houdin, to Orson Welles and Walt Disney, to Ray Bradbury and Ray Harryhausen, to Washington Irving and Lester Dent, to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Kane, Siegel, and Schuster, to all of you listening out there in the dark, happy Halloween.
You've been listening to Jim Dynamo's Bad Machine. Be part of the radio revolution by following our Twitter page @BadMachineRadio and by visiting Jim Dynamo's Bad Machine on Facebook. Bad Machine is a one-man media production, the exclusive owner of all original content. Otherwise, no rights are reserved. 2016.